Uh, I've been thinking, I think I'm going to take a new approach to these lessons. I was thinking instead of like just doing one continuous lesson, I'm going to basically just do different parts of different topics so that when you want to like reference or something like that, it's easier to reference. Like let's say if you want to remember about loops instead of having to go to like lesson 10, which is harder to remember. So yeah, I'm just gonna like do like specific lessons. So this is, for example, this is just about functions. So when you have problems when you're coding and you forget about functions, you can just check what I said about functions. But yeah, let me just do this so I can see the time. So yeah, basically, I'm gonna speak about functions in this lesson. So what are functions? So I have here a calculator. I feel like this is the best example I can think of what a function is, right? So if you recall, when you're performing a calculation in a calculator, let's say this particular calculation, 5 times 3, right? You enter your number, 5, and then times, and then this thing doesn't have the 3, but let's just say this is a 3, right? You enter 5 times 3, and then to get the result, what do? You press equals, right? You press equals, right? And then what does the calculator do? The calculator sees that, oh, okay, when someone presses equals, get whatever number they put here, find what operation they want, and then get the next number, and then perform this operation, and then display the result, right? Which is 15, right? Right? That's what the calculator does, right? It just gets whatever you put here, performs it, and then displays 15, right? That's an example of basically a function. This is a function, right? It's just a task you're telling it to do, right? It's just a specific task, right? So instead of having to, you know like having to like have a specific button for everything, so instead of having to like have a get whatever's here button, I don't know if that makes sense, and then calculate the task and then display the result, like different buttons for that. You just have one button that just basically tells the calculator they just do all these instructions. That's the same thing with instruction with the function, right? And if you recall from like the first lesson in Python, I don't know if I mentioned this about the whole hello world and all this thing, but you know here when you where you do print, this whole print thing, like print this, right? For example, right? Sorry, print this, right? This is an example of a function, right? The computer just knows that, hey, whenever someone says print, whatever they put here in this brackets, I just have to display it here, right? That's an example of a function, right? Another example is here, right? This button. Okay, let me not get there. That's kind of another topic, but yeah, that's just basically a function, right? That's an example of a function. Now, the question you're probably asking is, okay, how do I use this in Python? So I'm going to start with just the basic notation for a function. So whenever you're writing a function, you basically write this this word. This word is a specific keyword for Python, right? Def. This is specifically meant for functions, right? So before you write a function, you always have to write this. You always have to write def, meaning I think definition or something, define. I don't know, but def, and then you write the function name, function name, function name, right? And then you end that with brackets and brackets, and then yeah, basically your instruction, right? I'm going to explain why you put brackets later, but for now I just put it in your head that you just write this keyword. It doesn't matter if you know what it means or not, but just write this keyword, and then you write the name of your function. So maybe this function could be the equal sign. Maybe the guy who's writing this programming for the calculator describe this as the equal sign function, and then then the instruction, right? So how does this look like on an actual um, Python thing, right? So yeah, I have it here. I actually have it here from We3 Schools, So same thing I said, right? You have your definition of a function, the name of a function, this weird bracket thing, and some, the dots, and then, the instruction here, right? And then when you want to call your function or perform your function, you just basically just write the name of the function anywhere. So let me give you an actual practical example. So for example, let's say I'm writing a list. I'm printing out a name. I'm printing out no, not printing. Yeah, I'm writing a list of something. I'm writing an email, let's say that, right? So the email is this, right? So I'm gonna call this email um is this, right? Is, you know, dear, let's say hope you're well, hope you're well, uh this is to say hi, right? And I want to send this to like 1,000 people, right? I want to send this to 1,000 people. So this is just one of the examples you can use for functions, but ideally you can use them for so many things. So I want to like write that at every, yeah, let's say I have like a name, like names of people. Let's say I want to write this, send this to John. You know, I want to print it out here, just to send it to John. So you should write John. You know, hope you're well. Basically this, right? What I can do, I mean, I can use loops and all these things, but for this example specifically, I'm going to use function, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function, right? I'm going to create a function. Uh, if this doesn't make sense, I'm going to give another example. Not another example, but when I'm explaining the whole brackets thing in the next lesson, the parameters basically, I guess you can view that again. I'll give more examples, but I'm going to just, for this lesson specifically, I'm going to call this def. I'm going to call it email, and then it just be basically this, and then it'll have this, and then return. I'm going to use this keyword called return. By the way, Python has a lot of different keywords, so if you want to yeah, different keywords, I really encourage you to read this V3 School guys, like all this stuff. You know, they have a lot of keywords for different, you know, different functions and different stuff you're doing, right? But for just the sake of this lesson, this return is a very common keyword in programming. We use it basically whenever you are calling a function, whenever you're telling a function. You remember here I told you about the calculator, right? So whoever was like maybe programming this calculator said that whenever someone presses this thing, I want you to return, meaning, you know, the response, right? If you call someone's name, they'll respond, right? So that's the same thing. So just take this word as basically a response, right? The response to the function is return email. Basically, email is hope you're well. Well, I hope you're well. This is to this is this is to say hi, right? Hope you're well. This is to say hi, right? Now, when I want to call this function, I can just say print email, right? With the brackets. Always remember to put the brackets, because this brackets, that's the difference between a variable. Because a variable is basically just, I can say email, right, and say the same thing, right? This is hi, right? But then what differentiates a variable from a function is that the function has this brackets here. So yeah, I can just say print, you know, print email, it'll write, hey, hope you're well. So like, hey, what's the difference between doing this and a variable? Well, when you see with the whole parameters thing, but for now, I just take it as it is, right? In the next lesson, but yeah, just take it as it is. You know, when you have like, for example, I was talking about, I wanted to send this to like, let's say a lot of people, right? I can just do print, you know, John, let's say John, right? John space plus email, right? And then I can copy this, you know, print, let's say Tom or something. Tom plus email, right? You know, John, hope you're well. This is say hi, Tom, hope you're well. I mean, the lot of things. This is just one example of it, right? You can even use it for numbers, right? You can tell it that, hey, you know, when I call this thing, you know, print, you know, let's say 2 plus 3 or something. Oh, let's just print 2 or something like that, right? And when I just call email, just like this, you know, it'll just print 3, right? So yeah, this is just different applications for it, but I hope this makes sense.